Welcome to the Convocation Hall. Your safety is our priority. Please pay attention to the safety briefing. In case of an emergency, please use the exit nearest to you. This auditorium has 10 exits. 6 exits are behind you, and 2 at the right side, and 2 at the left side. Do not panic and follow the instructions of the staff. Proceed to the nearest assembly area. This building has 2 assembly areas, one at the front and another at the back of the hall. Walk briskly towards the assembly point. Do not run. Please do not re-enter unless instructed to do so. Stay calm and stay away from pathways. Our campus has a dedicated quick response team, and they are minutes away, not seconds. But in an emergency, every second matters. Don't wait. Act immediately. Your preparedness is your power and can save lives. Thank you very much. Stay safe and be prepared.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, now it's time to move to a session that represents leadership, courage, and service at the highest level. वो कहते हैं ना कि मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं, मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं जिनके सपनों में जान होती है, मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं जिनके सपनों में जान होती है, पंख से कुछ नहीं होता, हौसलों से उड़ान होती है. And these lines stand true for our guest for this evening. हमारे इन गेस्ट के हौसले, दृढ़ता और निश्चय के कारण आज देश का हर नागरिक अपने आप को सुरक्षित महसूस करता है. It's a matter of great honor for Techfest IIT Bombay to host one of the most distinguished military leaders of our nation. With decades of exemplary service to the nation, he has played a pivotal role in shaping India's modern defense posture. His leadership stands as a testament to strategic vision, operational excellence, and unwavering commitment to the national security. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about our chief guest for the evening, the Chief of Defense Staff of India, General ANIL CHAUHAN, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SMVSM, and to formally invite him for the welcome note, may I please request the director of IIT Bombay, Professor Shirish Kedare, to join the dais and welcome him. Ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's very interesting. And I'm very happy that General ANIL CHAUHAN is here. And he is PVSM, UISM, AVSM, SM, VSM. And then you can search. But for example, UISM is, which is unknown normally, is Uttam Yuddha Seva Medal. So these are all medals. He is an alumnus of National Defense Academy and was commissioned into 6th Battalion, the 11th Gorkha Rifles in June 1981. And he has a career of 44 years. He has critical appointments, including Director General, Military Operations and General Officer, Commanding in Chief of Eastern Command. He served as a military advisor to NSCS before being appointed as second CDS of the country, which is a common person who commands all the three forces. So this was started recently, and Bipinji was the first one, and he is the second CDS of the country since 30th September 2022. So he's 3 years in the office. He is a highest ranked military officer, and is triple-hatted and concurrently holds appointment of Chairman, Chief of Staff Committee, Secretary, Department of Military Affairs, besides tenating the appointment of CDS. He's also the principal military advisor to the Honorable Raksha Mantri on all tri-services matter. I will also highlight this thing that he has been spearheading the change, the organizational and structural reforms, which are very important. He has identified more than 200 integration initiatives for nurturing the change to transform the Indian armed forces into modern, integrated, and the future-ready force. Now, this is very important, and so you can imagine that three forces are connected to each other with multiple links. It's not just at the top that they are integrated, but this is very interesting. As Secretary DMA, General Chauhan has been instrumental in ensuring strengthening of the department and functional amalgamation into Ministry of Defense. Now, this is another thing, not only three forces, but with the Ministry of Defense, he has been at the forefront of bringing about reforms in functioning of MOD, Ministry of Defense, and has contributed immensely with inputs as initiatives for Year of Reforms. As permanent chairman, COSC, he has led the consensus-driven creation of Theatre Command with single-minded focus. So this is very important. A firm believer in India's resurgence potential, he has been a passionate proponent of nation's Atmanirbharta drive. He has been instrumental in bolstering India's defense diplomacy and cementing India's standing as a preferred security partner in IOR. Academically inclined, General ANIL CHAUHAN has authored a number of books to include Aftermath of a Nuclear Attack, History of 11 Gorkha Rifles Regimental Center, Military Geography of Northern Borders, and 2 books of the series titled Ready, Relevant, and Resurgent. I am very happy that this is a visionary leader of our all three forces. We normally say, and she also mentioned that we can sleep peacefully because defense forces are at the border. But defense forces are not only at the border, they have to be at different places nowadays. And the second thing is, it's not only defense forces' responsibility that we can sleep, we also be very vigilant and also careful about what we buy. For example, if we buy something that other countries make, it's actually detrimental to our country and our defense forces. This is on one side, this is for all general, and this is sometimes known. We should buy Swadeshi. we should buy our product, at least from the friendly nations. But the second thing, which is very relevant to IIT, is now defense forces is not just fought by the armed forces at the border, sea or air. It's also by technology. It's a technology warfare nowadays. And as IIT, we have a great responsibility in looking ahead, thinking beyond what others can look at, others can think, so that our defense forces can, I'll say, ironically, peacefully fight at the border. Now it's our responsibility, and I hope with our Center for Defense Technology Initiative, Innovations and Strategies, which aims at technology development, but also thinking about what can be the technological strategies. We are not in detailed strategy, but the technological background of the strategies that can evolve with the armed forces. I'm very happy that General ANIL CHAUHAN is here so that we can strengthen the ties with our armed forces in a uniform way. Thank you, Anilji, and all other officers who have accompanied him will work together, and I invite him for his lecture. We are looking forward to. Thank you.
Director of Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, Professor Shirish Kedar, Professor Sachin Patwardhan, the Dean, senior faculty members, heads of departments, distinguished guests, friends for the media, and dear students. A very good evening to all of you. It's a matter of great honor and pride for me to address the Techfest 2025 at IIT Bombay. I have been told that this Techfest is the largest such event in Asia. It's a platform where innovation meets leadership, and I'm glad to be part of this particular event. I'm also cognizant of the fact that I'm speaking today to one of the brightest and the youngest minds of our country. You people have the capability to take India forward, to realize its dreams of being Viksit Bharat by 2025. You have the potential, and I'm sure you'll be able to do that. Let me start with a short couplet of Sahir Ludhianvi, which says, उस मुल्क की सरहद को कोई छू नहीं सकता, जिस मुल्क की सरहद की निगहबान हैं आँखें, हर तरफ के जज्बात का ऐलान है आँखें, शबनम कभी, शोला कभी, तूफान है आँखें. This couplet is dedicated to the citizens of India who are the eyes of the nation. It is said that informed citizenry of a country is the first line of defense of any country. An informed, involved, and passionate population contributes to the defense of the nation. They are the Shola, Shabnam, and Tufan, the dew, the flame, and the storm of nationalism. Today's event is actually a realization of the fact that the citizens of the country, including the academia, are involved in the security challenges that India faces. And that's why they've invited the Chief of Defense Staff for this particular talk and asked him to speak on a subject which is so relevant: India's strategic defense vision, technology, integration, and future warfare. I think it's a very relevant theme to speak about, a theme that intrinsically connects technology to the institution of armed forces. And while I share my thoughts on this particular subject, it actually feels to me that I'm speaking to a war college, and Army, Navy, or Air Force War College, and the theme is almost similar. What I will do is, while speaking on this subject, I'll talk about nature and character of war, how it is changing, what kind of wars can we expect in future. Then I'll be establishing a relationship between technology and strategy. And then, of course, we will talk about integration and innovation, a subject which is dear to me and also dear to you people. Let me start by saying that war is a phenomenon as old as human civilization. The need for dominance and use of violence to achieve what we desire, this is all part of basic human nature. So war has been there ever since human civilization has been there. So war is organized violence for political ends. Clausewitz, a famous thinker actually on war, he had said that war is a continuation of politics by other means. He also said that it's imposition of one's will on the enemy. And war over a period of time has evolved as the society has evolved. When man was a hunter-gatherer, war meant fighting in small groups, inter-clan or inter-tribal clashes. As the society moved to the agriculture age, war involved armed bands under feudal chiefs and later into organized armies of kings and monarchs. With the industrial age came the modern armed forces of a nation state, structured, professional, and industrially enabled. They were organized to protect what constitutes a nation state. Three elements constitute a nation state, modern nation state, that is territory, its people, and its ideology. However, currently we are transiting into an era where basic elements that constitute a state, or what we talk about sovereignty of state, that is getting challenged by a number of changes, by free movement of people, money, digital currencies, ideas and ideologies across borders. This challenges the very concept and understanding of sovereignty. The situation has been further aggravated by transnational ideologies like jihad or multinational conglomerates, whose sometimes market capital exceeds that of some nations. Today, we have organized armed forces of a state. Apart from that, we have mercenaries which fight. We have private security agencies we fight. We have transnational citizens, netizens fighting and operating in the digital domain. We have social influencers shaping perceptions in the cognitive domain. Individuals are exploiting knowledge on internet to make explosives, chemical weapons, maybe tomorrow biological weapons. So the arena of warfare actually has expanded many folds. And the type of combatants we find today are not restricted to the organized armed forces which we thought were there with the nation states. Another area which has seen a major change is the battlefield. This is an important constituent any kind of a conflict, and it's where the outcome of the war is finally decided. Historically, if you look at history, ancient and medieval wars, all battlefields were single battlefield, generally on land. Today, battlefields have expanded from land to the maritime domain and then to the air. I think my belief is simple. Whenever man or mankind gets used to a particular way of things, a way of earning livelihood, then it becomes lucrative for an adversary to deny this to you by use of force. And that's what is war about. So we've seen this in case of the maritime domain, where sea routes were opened up for trade and commerce, and then they were used to deny. Maritime trade grew, conflict naturally extended into the maritime domain. Control of seas also ensured that it became a powerful tool to influence events on land. Similar kind of thing we find being replicated in the air domain. War expanded into the air domain to deny its use to the adversary and to exploit its influence and to exploit and influence events on land as well as sea. For thousands of years, actually, all battlefields were on land. For the past 400 or 500 years, it's been in the maritime domain also. And you can say in the past 100 years or so, they have been in the air domain. So air is relatively a new domain. Now, actually, we are at a cusp of an era that warfare is going to expand into newer and unknown domains. Cyber, space, electromagnetic spectrum, cognitive domain. These are new domains of warfare. These are no longer niche military spaces. We depend on them every day, which makes them critical and therefore contested for any kind of future warfare. Let me now talk about there's old domains and new domains of warfare. When I said old domains, it was land, maritime, and the air domain. And these new domains were space, cyber, we had electromagnetic domain, and the cognitive domain. History is replete with examples that warfare in the old domains is always brutal, it's long-lasting, and it's kind of a slugfest. It consumes the manpower, material, time, and national resources. You know why it is? This is largely because the principal platforms employed in land warfare have been there for quite some time. Tank was there on a battlefield almost about 100 years ago, and still been there. We have cannons and artillery guns, muskets, rifles, etc. They've been in there on the battlefield for more than 500, 600 years. So both sides of the battlefield, the adversaries or the belligerents to this particular conflict, have evolved their tactics, technology, practices, strategies to counter those things. So there is nothing new actually to produce on the battlefield. And hence, this battle on this old domains, as we see, is largely a kind of a slugfest. It takes long amount of time. It's very, very brutal. And the two examples of this we find in modern warfare are, one is the Ukrainian war, which is dragging on for more than 4 years. It's like fighting in the traditional domain, but of course with new technology. And similarly, we find this in Gaza, the war which lasted for more about 3 years. So one can say that old domains are prolonged and punishing as it's predictable. To gain advantage, we need to shift focus, and we can do this by innovation, integration, and involving new domains of warfare. Now let me talk about new domains. As I said, warfare in the new domains is faster and smarter. It's also shorter in duration, and the tempo of that warfare is very, very high. Decisions are compressed in time, and effects of that war are felt almost instantaneously. This was clearly visible in Operation Sindoor, a war which lasted only about 4 days, giving India a decisive victory. But all domains of warfare were used simultaneously with great amount of tempo. This dynamism in warfare was also evident in the Israel-Iran conflict, where actions in new domain, particularly cyber-enabled ISR, information surveillance and reconnaissance, information operations, and long-range precision effects shape the strategic outcomes. Again, these new domains are the ones where actually you can create asymmetries between nations. And those asymmetries actually help you win a war. It's difficult to create asymmetry in, say, land warfare because every kind of platform has lived for hundreds of years. But in new domains like cyberspace, you can create asymmetries. And if you can create asymmetries, you can exploit them, and then you can actually defeat your adversary. So this is what happens when developed nations do, try and create asymmetries in these new domains. So as Indian Armed Forces, we must attempt to maintain technological asymmetry in new domains to remain combat ready. If I were to now summarize as to what kind of a warfare, character-wise, will it be, I can say that these will be conducted simultaneously across multiple domains to achieve faster decision-making and quick victory. So multi-domain operations will no longer be an option, but a necessity, where effects of one domain will be immediately felt onto the other domain. Multi-domain operations will also require multi-domain capabilities and cross-domain control, command and control. This will require extensive coordination and control between not only Army, Navy, and Air Force, but also cyber forces, space forces, and forces which are operating in the cognitive domain. So warfare for centuries, again, has been actually a contact warfare between two belligerents. And today we are entering into an era that will be a mix between contact and non-contact kind of warfare, the one which we saw in Operation Sindoor. It will also be a mix of kinetic warfare along with non-kinetic warfare, with non-kinetic warfare operating in the cyber and the cognitive domain. Well, these were influences on how warfare is evolving as far as domains, belligerents, your combatants are concerned. Let me now talk about geopolitical trends, which also have an influence on the type of war which will happen. I started my talk by saying that war is a continuation of politics by other means. Politics and war are both closely connected. A nation's political interests are always paramount. Military actions are subordinate to political decisions. That's a well-known fact, especially in democratic countries like India. If we look at the conflicts which happened in this globe across us, we find there are two paradoxical kind of trends. First, there is an increased propensity to use military force for settlement of disputes. This is seen in Ukraine, Armenia, Syria, Iran, Gaza, Sudan, Central Africa, Thailand, Cambodia, etc. While nations want to achieve political ends through use of force, they're also conscious of the destructive potential of modern wars because not only of conventional weapons, but also because of advent of nuclear weapons. This has made war an obsolete phenomenon. When I say war, I mean declared wars an obsolete phenomenon. War is constantly taking place. So these are those two paradoxical kind of trends. So force is being used for enforcing political decision, but with calibration. This gives rise to something which can be called as informal wars or undeclared wars. Russia categorized it as special operations. The reluctance of nation states to enter into full-scale war or declared wars, which were the trend actually till World War II or say 1970 war, has given rise to these undeclared wars, and it has also created some kind of an static stability because of weapons of mass destruction or the potential of conventional weapons itself becoming humongous. This has given rise to two kind of trends, to kind of extract importance of out of this static stability which I just spoke about. One is terrorism. The form of warfare exploits the deterrent stability achieved through strategic and conventional weapons to bleed the enemy, like through 1,000 cuts, and India has been a victim to this. And in this, deniability of this and rhetoric are part of this strategy. And as I said, India has been witness to this for past many, many years. And this kind of warfare, I think, can only be deterred by actions like Operation Sindoor. Second is a form of gray zone warfare, in which historical differences can be executed by small operations, which will give you long-term kind of an effects. The question is, what kind of threats and challenges India should be prepared for? I think this should be based on two major facts. One is that both our adversaries are, one is a nuclear weapon state and other is a nuclear armed states. So hence, we should not allow that level of deterrence to be breached. And second, we have territorial disputes with both of them. Hence, in my view, we should be prepared to fight short duration, high intensity conflicts to deter terrorism, something like Operation Sindoor, that's one. Second, we should be prepared for a land-centric, long-duration conflict because we have land disputes, yet try and avoid it. Third, we must exploit new domains and create asymmetry with our weaker adversary and yet not allow these asymmetries to be exploited by other nations. Terrorism and gray zone warfare maybe will remain a threat and will require both defensive and offensive response. So having explained the kind of belligerence you'll have, the kind of battlefields you have, and what kind of geopolitical situations will lead to types of war in future as far as our nation is concerned, let me try and connect technology with warfare. To win a war, actually, you require something which is called as a strategy. It's traditionally, the understanding of strategy was known as an art of the general. In ancient India, we spoke about this as Ran-niti. Ran means warfare, and niti means policy. Strategy was used by generals to win a war, and there was a famous saying in Sanskrit which said, Yuktaya sarve sambhavati. That means by strategy, everything becomes possible. So winning a war is not a kind of an option, but the only recourse available to nation states. Because fate of the nation depends on the outcome of war. There are no runners-up in war, we all know that, and there are no consolation prizes for brave attempts. The harsh reality has driven military commanders throughout ages to strategize, to gain advantage over the adversary. Today, of course, we use strategy in the broadest term. We talked about business strategy, we got financial strategy. But essentially, strategy means trying to align the ends, ways with the means. For centuries, again, if we say strategy has been dependent on one thing, well, that was geography or terrain. And when I talk about geography, it was about physical as well as human geography. Careful exploitation of terrain had decided the outcome of smallest of battle to the biggest of campaign, and that's true for battles like, means you count any battle, terrain would have played an important factor into it. Whether it was Palasi, it was Panipat in Indian context, Waterloo, we had modern wars like Vietnam, terrain was an important factor. Modern warfare today is influenced more by technology and less by geography. In fact, the problems of geography have been overcome by technology. This is ushering in a revolution in military affairs. And I classically, for a simple understanding, I have classified this revolution in military affairs as 3 revolutions. First revolution in military affair, I have classified as maneuver warfare, which is because it was brought in by advances in mobility, ground mobility like tanks, ICVs, ships, guns, and of course, air mobility, sometimes helicopters and aircrafts. So this ushered in something known as maneuver, and maneuver used to take place on ground or in kind of in air, and it introduced concepts like blitzkrieg, which was the German concept. It's introduced concepts like air-land battle by the Americans or deep battles of erstwhile Soviet era. And, but maneuver warfare largely dependent on terrain, apart from these technology platforms which I just spoke about. This got changed after Kosovo and the Iraq War. Warfare moved from maneuver warfare to net-centric warfare. That was because of advances in sensor technologies, ISR, communication, computing technologies. And this introduced concepts like battlefield transparency and enhanced situational awareness. And now you could carry out long-distance precision strikes and non-linearity. Battles were fought with front lines. Now there were no front lines. You could go deep inside because you had long-range precision strike weapons, etc. These coming in. So non-linearity became the buzzword. And there were multiple domains which were opened up into warfare, which I spoke about earlier part of the lecture. So warfare became multi-domain. Today, we are at a cusp of a third revolution in military affair, and I have been calling it convergence warfare. This is happening because a number of technologies are simultaneously affecting the nature and character of warfare both. Earlier, there were few technologies were influencing how wars were fought, but today there are a number of technologies. It could be artificial intelligence, machine learning, edge computing, quantum, hypersonics, advanced materials, robotics. So a number of them are influencing warfare together. And this is going to change the speed of warfare, the speed at which we conduct warfare. So I mentioned a number of technologies. So each technology affects warfare in a different manner. It will be difficult to classify what is the effect of each technology in warfare. What I will do is I have shortlisted 5 trends, which I'll tell you how the warfare is, convergence warfare is getting affected by these technologies. First trend is about celerity. Celerity is about speed or velocity. This is happening because of advances in, say, hypersonics, long-range precision strikes, fractional orbital systems, stealth technologies. These are at one end, and at the other end we have drones, which have very small radar cross-section, which are at very well flying at low speeds, low altitude. They're difficult to kind of detect, and hence engagement of targets along this spectrum and at the ranges which they are, this becomes very, very difficult. And this particular trend is introducing a concept known as non-linearity, absolute non-linearity. That means today everything across every range is targetable. That's a fundamental change that's happening in warfare. So battlefields are expanding both in spatial as well as temporal planes. The second advantage or trend which we can say is because of sensor technologies. We all are aware that nature has given us 5 senses. and we are about, say, 8 billion people, so we may have 16 billion of eyes if you count them as sensors, actually. But today, man has made sensors which are much beyond these 5 natural senses. You have optical, electro-optical, radars, synthetic aperture radars, electronic, radio, seismic sensors, underwater sensors, chemical, biological, radiological sensors, all actually are producing different kind of transparency into battlefield. We have just been told about magnetic sensors. You can detect something which IIT professors were telling about, that we can detect anything which is magnetic, which is underground or underwater. So it's huge, it's difficult actually today because of this sensor. And next is the ubiquitousness of these sensors. I just said that there could be 16 billion eyes on this planet, but the number of optical sensors which we have far exceeds that. Everyone possesses one mobile camera smartphone which has a camera, and there will be multiple over here. The moment you go outside, they're outside on the roads, they're outside in the air, they're in space, they're all watching. And this is creating huge amount of data, and this is creating absolute transparency. So there's nothing which can be hidden. So in war, surprise, which was a major factor, that goes away. Because unless you move subterranean or unless you move underwater, everything would be detectable, everything would be known. So this is again producing transparency of very high levels. The third trend which we find is towards robotics and automation. This is because of advances in robotics, unmanned autonomous weapon systems, and this is introducing concepts like manned-unmanned teaming, or say exoskeletal with humans for combat. And this, for ages, war was always between two combatants, belligerents, which are human beings. Or the one human being could be better armed with a better sword, or better protected with a better helmet, or could be on a better horse or a charger. But essentially it was between humans. But now we are at a cusp in history where warfare could transit between man to machine. Your first contact could be with a machine, an armed drone, autonomous drone. So tomorrow, this may well warfare would be between machines and machines. And this is going to introduce automated, intelligent, and autonomous kill chains in combat and warfighting. The third trend is because of advances in material and manufacturing technology. This is producing lighter, stronger, smarter, more resilient systems which are far cheaper. 3D printing, rapid enabling, rapid prototyping, reducing dependency on global supply chains, etc. are the new norm. This is reducing cost and causing proliferation of weapon systems. Last trend is about battlefield becoming intelligent. That's because of data, data analytics, and machine learning, and artificial intelligence. So again, this is helping us to take faster and better decisions, and the decision cycle is getting shorter, and the battlefield or warfare is becoming intelligent. It's not a decision being taken by a service chief or a senior leadership, but he's being assisted constantly by artificial intelligence to take a better and a faster decision. So the tempo of future warfare will be very, very high, and it will also be intelligent. So with these technologies, what we are seeing is the emergence of third revolution in military affairs, which is convergence. It is, in my opinion, convergence warfare because it converges kinetic with non-kinetic, contact warfare with non-contact warfare, tactics, operational art, and strategy. It converges first revolution military affairs with second, and with third, it converges traditional domains with the new domains of warfare. Hence, we are entering into an era where reasons for war and methods are changing, the battlefields are expanding, new type of combatants are being introduced in the battlefield, and technology is introducing new concepts and strategies in warfare. And mind you, all this is happening at a breakneck speed. What are we doing to cope up with these kind of changes, the Indian Armed Forces? These changes, to incorporate these changes into the Indian Armed Forces, we will require major reforms, and these reforms will span structural, organizational, conceptual, doctrinal, procedural, and even cultural kind of changes. So we've been doing things in one manner for the past 78 years, but now if we have to be prepared, we have to move around with breakneck kind of a speed, the kind of speed which I just said technology and warfare is changing. This is why in 2025, we had declared that as a year of reforms, and probably it's an era now we'll have to declare the next decade actually as a decade of further reforms. If I were to summarize, because the subject of this talk is not to tell you about the kind of reforms we are taking. If I were to summarize this, I can summarize it with the acronym of JAY, which is of Jai Hind. That's Victory to Hind, that's India. And this was given none other than the Honorable Prime Minister. J is for jointness. A is for Atmanirbharta. And I is for innovation. So when we talk about jointness, it's about tri-service jointness. That ability to work together, plan together, and then fight together. The ultimate culminating stage of this kind of a reform will lead to introduction of integrated theater commands, which was mentioned by the director of the IIT. Second is about Atmanirbharta. Atmanirbharta is about self-reliance. And self-reliance is something to know about your own self. Self-reliance, the first word is the self, and so is Atman in Atmanirbharta. So this whole concept is about self-realization, which will lead to self-actualization, which leads to self-confidence. And this Atmanirbharta, sometimes we see it from a narrow prism of only defense manufacturing. It is not so. This involves strategic thinking should be new. There should be strategic thought process should be Indian. It should be based on Indian conditions, Indian geography, Indian terrain, Indian kind of threats. And strategy and tactics will have to get involved, will have to change as per Indian perceptions, and for which we'll require Indian academia, Indian think tanks, Indian military, armed forces to think about it. Why this need for innovation? I think briefly it was again mentioned by Director IIT, Professor Sirish. He spoke about the need for Indian weapon systems. I think this is important for the simple reason. In any kind of warfare, I think it's important. Surprise is a battle-winning factor. There can be no surprise if you're fighting with an imported weapon. Its capabilities, its ranges, its protection system, everything is known. I mean, global OEMs, manufacturers actually advertise it. This technology is available in a number of other nations. So if you have to have surprise in battlefield, you have to have innate systems, because that is what is going to introduce uncertainty into the adversary. Their true capabilities, limitations, and modes of employment are not fully known, restoring the element of surprise. Apart from that, I think what it reduces, which helps us is in surge capacities. You have a system which is your own, and you can then actually, during war, if you require, you can have surge capacities. You can produce it more, you can repair it in your country. Third thing I think which is important is parallel development of an equipment. You have one model, next time you make a better prototype of that same model. So parallel development is important. So I think innovation and integration is important. Finally, who's responsible for such kind of innovations which I spoke about just now, and why this is important? I think, and I spoke about this range of innovative changes which we require. I think if it's to talk about war strategy, it will be the military which will take the lead. The responsibility of innovating war strategy rests with the military. It involves anticipating future character of war, developing new concepts of operations, integrating multiple domains, and translating national objectives into executable plans. If we were to innovate in defense manufacturing, I think our industry will have to take the lead, which will include transforming research outcomes into reliable, scalable, and cost-effective products. And if we are to talk about innovation in defense R&D, then I think academic institutions like IIT are the right platform in which innovation has to be carried forward. As young minds, you have to challenge assumptions and transform ideas into technologies that will shape the nation's future. And I urge all of you actually to be innovative and inventive. And over here, actually, I like to use a quote from Albert Einstein, who had once said that the true mark of intelligence is not knowledge, it's imagination. So if you want to be innovative, you'll have to be imaginative. And that's what I'll urge the students of this institution to be. While I just said that innovation is a responsibility of the academia, of which IIT is an important part, but I should also say that the government of India is cognizant of the fact that we all have to work together. So hence, not only the services, DRDO, government has underlined a number of initiatives to help this innovative ecosystem to evolve in our country. We have a MOU with a number of IITs, which are by the service headquarters, including with IIT Bombay, which is done by Army Design Bureau. This is one. We have the Centers of Excellence, which are done by DRDO, a total of 15 Centers of Excellence for the industry and academia are there. There are almost about 82 research verticals which are being funded by DRDO in this. At IIT Bombay itself, projects being executed are in the field of aero engines, small turbofan engines, solid proportional technologies, advanced aircraft structures, hypersonic propulsions, compound semiconductor technologies, etc. Apart from this, the Ministry of Defense has introduced IDEX, which is Innovation in Defense Technologies. This was launched in 2018. Today we have almost about 500 plus problem statements which have been projected, and this has seen a very good result. We almost have 497 contracts have been concluded so far. We have also got a Srijan portal, which helps Indianize spare parts and small sub-assemblies for the main weapon system. So there are almost about 30 to 40,000 items, 47,000 items, which have been put on the Srijan portal for the academia industry to Indianize. And this whole is valued for more than 1 lakh crores. Our equipment procurement procedures also have undergone various kind of changes. As far as the second part of the talk, in which we talked about warfare, we spoke about technology, we spoke about innovation, one small bit about integration. I spoke about jointness among the three services being essential to fight future wars, especially multi-domain wars. The second step of this jointness is integration. That means we physically integrate networks, information systems, ISR systems, targeting systems, air defense systems with each other so that we understand and have a common operating picture. That, I think, is important. But the end point of this integration does not end with the integration among the three services. This could be a start point for integrating this particular concept with CAPF, with other ministries which are involved in similar kind of ventures like civil aviation, Ministry of Shipping, etc. This kind of integration has to develop between the military, the industry, and the academia of the state. Without trust, collaboration will remain transactional. With trust, it will become transformational. So we have heard this term about civil-military fusion. So all elements of the state, actually, when they combine their energies together, then of course it will be good for the country. And we need to work towards this. So with this, I come to almost end of my talk. And as part of my concluding remarks, I would say that I commenced my talk by saying that informed citizen is the nation's first line of defense. The very subject selected by IIT Bombay, actually an academic institution, gives me hope and assures me that people of the nation stand with the forces, and they too are equally concerned with the security and defense of the nation. Thank you so very much for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the valuable insights and the motivation. I have collected a few questions on behalf of the students present here. With your kind permission, I'll place those questions before you. The first question is, on difficult days, what keeps you motivated and focused on the larger vision? And what life lessons have you learned in service that you believe is valuable even outside of military?
I think, to remain focused, to remain motivated, or to remain out of focus or remain demotivated is not an option. At least for a service chief or a CDS, this is not an option for me. I have to remain motivated and focused at all times. It's a major responsibility on your shoulder, and this I think is important. As far as in times of stress, what do you do and what kind of lessons you take forward, I think it's important to remain calm under stress. You can remain calm under stress only on one condition: when you have thought of everything which can be possibly affecting you, all kind of contingencies. So in armed forces rather, this is the important thing that whatever you're doing, you plan ahead and you think of contingencies, and when they occur, at least you have thought about it, so you can retain your calm, take a correct decision, and then move forward.
Thank you, sir. The next question, as you know that IIT Bombay produces one of the great minds of the country, so how institutions like IIT can contribute meaningfully to the national defense beyond uniformed services?
Part of this, I think, I covered in my talk. Two things are important. One must understand that armed forces are only a front end of that fight. Wars are fought by nations. And everyone, may not be in a short duration war, but certainly in a long duration war. Preparation for a short duration war will involve what I spoke about: innovation, jointness, integration, all those factors. Spreading awareness about all this, about national security, is an important thing. So one thing you've already done. Second thing is about innovation, which I spoke about. We have to fight today's war with tomorrow's technologies. Tomorrow's technologies will require innovative kind of thinking. It will require imagination, which I spoke about. So all this is these young minds, actually. And when I say this, I also made a statement, that these young people will take the country forward to 2047. They'll also be the beneficiary of this development. People like us will fade away, by 2047. But these young people will be there at their middle age. So they'll also be the beneficiaries of this Viksit Bharat. So you have a bigger stake than me in development of the country. And from an academic institution like IIT, that's why in my talk I urged you people to be more imaginative, innovative, inventive. That's important from IITs.
Right. And as it is rightly said that not all wars are fought on the battlefield. So how important it is to maintain the mental resilience, especially in case of leadership roles. So as a chief of defense staff, what role empathy plays in your leadership style and commanding troops in high-pressure environments?
Empathy, sympathy is the important thing. Armed forces, I think mission accomplishment becomes important. That is one. But still, I've seen this at least written as a slogan in the Air Force, that mission, people first, mission always. Mission is important, but this mission is executed by people. So you have to look after your people because they are the ones which are going to execute your mission. Right. While mission is always important and remains paramount. How does this empathy come in a service officer? That's because you have gone through all those stages in life. You have been exposed to danger when you are a young officer. So when you take decisions that will put people in danger, you already know the kind of risk you will be taking. So So you're not commanders which have been put right at top immediately. So you have graduated from being a soldier, second lieutenant, and through paces, and you've experienced all what you're telling people to do, part of that. So there's an automatic empathy and connect with the people.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. And now, as a token of respect and honor, may I request the Director of IIT Bombay, Professor Shirish Kedare, to present General ANIL CHAUHAN, the Chief of Defense Staff of India, to present a memento to him. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Huge round of applause. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to put a huge round of applause for the Techfest team as well. They've managed the event so well. The young guns, the bright future of India, they deserve your applause. With this, we arrive to the end of the session. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, thank you so much. You've taken out such valuable time from your busy schedule, and you've come here to motivate such young minds. Thank you for guiding us, motivating us. He's the hero of our country. So ladies and gentlemen, एक और बार जोरदार तालियों के साथ, let's salute General ANIL CHAUHAN, the Chief of Defense Staff of India. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, एक साथ हो जाए, जय हिंद! Wow, that's the spirit. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir. And with this, your host Swapnila signs off. You can evacuate and leave the hall one by one. I wish you a great evening. Have a great time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being the part of Techfest, first day of 2025. Thank you.